Welcome to Cultural Fluency Makers. I'm your host, David Wellish. Each week, we welcome leaders to share how they stay ahead of the ever-changing consumer landscape. With today's cultural transformation, top brands need to understand diverse consumer segments from Gen Z, Hispanic, and LGBTQ+, to gamers, wine enthusiasts, and basketball fanatics in Iowa. Their marketing strategies require them to keep the pulse on their consumers, but also their brand in the category to continue to grow revenue for the long term. Cultural Fluency Makers is sponsored by Collage Group, the only cultural intelligence engine that provides brand and consumer insights on the why that drives consumer behavior and purchase decisions. Let's get started. So to close out the year, I am so excited with the new episode which we're about to begin. Today's guest has spent her career turning curiosity about human behavior into powerful strategies that shape some of the world's most iconic brands. With more than 25 years of experience, she has guided research and insights across industries from CPG and beauty to entertainment and media, working with beloved names like Harry Potter, DC, Looney Tunes, Cartoon Network, Barbie, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, P&G, and more. Her expertise spans everything from youth audiences and multicultural research to global brand building and content development, helping businesses connect more deeply with fans and consumers. Now, at the heart of her work is a simple but inspiring principle: to truly motivate others, you don't show them your superpowers, you show them theirs, which I so love. She's the EVP of Inside Strategy and Analytics at Sony Pictures Entertainment. Tania Missad, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Thank you, David. Such a nice intro. It's nice to be here with you.
Okay, Tania, let's go deep here.
Hey.
So you've been in this space for a long time. You're a veteran, and you've seen, as I have seen, that our country and the demographic landscape continues to shift and change and evolve during the last 10, 15, 20 years, even the last 2 years. My first question is, how how what do you see the role for cultural intelligence or cultural insights for really any consumer company or a company and organization like Sony Pictures Entertainment?
Yeah, I think obviously, cultural understanding has been the core of growth at almost every company I've ever been, lucky enough to participate in their strategies. Whether it was in beauty with how much, Latinx and beauty audiences love Black audiences love beauty and really engage in it, to Mattel, where a lot of the new parents that were having kids that were buying toys were culturally diverse audiences, to now when I make television shows, or our team helps make TV shows. Culture, in order to make a good TV show, you have to reflect the audience that exists. And the reality of our audience, the reality of our country, is that it's a diverse country. And we have people from everywhere. It's what makes America so beautiful. And our TV shows have to reflect that in all of its shapes and sizes, meaning, doing a TV show means that you have to reflect what's going on in society and how people are struggling with identity and the polarization that's happening in society. That's all part of cultural conversations. And in order for a TV show to really hit the zeitgeist and really connect with people emotionally, it has to reflect those authentic experiences that people are having in the country, and that's happened forever. And so it's critical. You can't have a good TV show if it doesn't connect with people and what they're really living. And some of the best shows that we've seen in the last year, and I'll tout some of, we study all TV. We love our TV shows, but we study all TV. I'll tout Adolescence was an amazing example of that.
Right.
Such a great example of really understanding culture and understanding, like, people are really into crime right now and can't stop watching crime shows, but they hooked you in with this crime story, but then they really talked about what's going on in culture with masculinity and, media and social media and how that's indoctrinating our kids and taking up so much mind space for our kids. And is that healthy for them? It's so complex. And the only way that those very talented writers could have brought that to life was by understanding culture. And I think so it's critical. It's critical to growth. It's always been critical in CPG. And it's incredibly critical in television because you're reflecting life and everything we talk about is about identity and culture.
So Tanya, culture as a growth imperative. I love that. And I to your point, we speak to so many product driven guests and companies, and yet in media, it's even more important because ultimately it's all about connecting and connection. And the only way you can do that is if you truly deeply understand people and consumers. If it's such a growth imperative, what what are the key challenges of getting this thing that we call culture right? What's hard?
Sometimes what's hard is comfort, where people are used to working in a particular way or with particular types of people and getting the people in the room in the conversation that can provide that different perspective isn't always a given. Like, I think it needs to be intentional. What's hard is getting the right people in the room to create that change, that dialogue. That happened in CPG all the time, where you really needed people that understood the nuances of culture to get something right and authentic. I lived it for many years, and when we were doing even all of the stuff that I worked on with Barbie, I was very lucky to work there when we were debuting all the multicultural versions of Barbie, and all the different ethnicities of Barbie and curvy Barbie, and all the different body sizes of Barbie. And, we needed people that reflected those experiences, why it's important to have a kid see themselves reflected in a toy, and have that be not monolithic, but, truly diverse. And that necessarily wouldn't have happened without passionate people in the room that it was their own life experience that brought that passion to change things. So I think it's comfort. Sometimes the rooms where the room where it happens tend to be populated by people that are used to working with a certain type of person or the same type of people all the time. And I think you need to be intentional about hearing those voices, recruiting those voices, um, working with those voices. So I think it's that. It's intentionality of culture.
So what's hard is orchestrating. So I guess the intentionality, authenticity, orchestrating, having the right people in the room. What you've been in this space for so long, in such a profound way because you've seen so much through different lenses, different industries. What would you say about the evolution of your partners in terms of this sort of cultural insight? Do you think that today you're better suited to get to those signals? Do you think there's a gap in the market? What's your take?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, I think currently we're living through a moment where you have to be really thoughtful about how to talk about culture in a way that is inclusive of every viewpoint. And we're in that moment where we just have to be open to every viewpoint. And it is part of what I mentioned before, reflecting what's happening to our world here, but everywhere around the world where we make TV shows. This concept of being inclusive of all voices is really important to making sure that the stories are landing and that they're heard and that you don't get into a polarized situation with your content, right? Um,
Which is so hard. I mean, that is by
yeah,
definition in the society that we live in, it's almost impossible. I mean, it's
it is. And sometimes it serves our shows, right, to have a stronger point of view. I think, but what in terms of being equipped to hear those signals, like I think we've never been more equipped. There's never been more data. We are relentless about data today as much as we've ever been. really being close to the audience, understanding the audience in every single way, understanding generational differences. We look at things a lot through generational lenses. How
Yeah.
Gen Z different from the boomer generation, from Gen Xers. We also look at life stage. Like we find that there's a lot of interesting insight in how different life stages show up for our content and media. Particularly, we know a lot of younger, like teen and early young adult audiences are really into short form content because it's so much about engaging with their friends. But as you get into a more coupled state of life, then premium media takes more of a role. But all of that is by really understanding the audience, being relentless about talking to the audience all the time. We do like weekly trend tracking to understand what's being said, what's being talked about in culture, because in media, like TV shows, again, reflect what's happening in society. We have to know what society's talking about on a constant basis. And I do think that technology has allowed us to be so much closer to the audience now than ever before. And audiences are talking all of the time. That's the one benefit of social media, is that there's a lot of conversation that you can be constantly getting signals from, that really is, educational for us, to understand culture. So I think the tools have never been better. I think the way in which we then talk about culture, that changes as society is changing.
Yeah.
And right now, there's this moment of polarization that's making it trickier.
Yes. 100%. And when you talk about tools, is social the mechanism that you think gets you closest to culture, or not
Yep.
necessarily?
I'm a massive believer in studying social on a constant basis, but it's definitely not the only thing that we study. We look at it all of the time. What the benefit of social is that it's fast. It's
Yeah.
real time. And in a lot of our field and primary research, like things take time. And sometimes we don't have the luxury of time, particularly on a TV show. Like it comes and goes, usually the window, especially with the binging phenomenon. In a weekend, it's in and out. So you really have to be listening real time to what audiences are saying about a particular television show. So it's speed, but there's limitations to social. If you think about who gets on social to talk about a show, it's usually your super invested super fan. And there's a lot of people that love your show or love your product that don't get on and talk about it. So you still have to talk to the everyday consumer. So we still do a lot of traditional methodologies for that sort of work, like traditional primary research to get at, our core audiences. We have proprietary panels of audience and viewers that we talk to all of the time, in addition to then monitoring social to understand what's being said. We know social can also play a role in influencing how people feel about something.
Yeah.
And so it's really important for that, sort of the group think that happens as a result of social conversation is important. It's real. So we have to be monitoring both, to sort of get the real while we're getting, well, how is social impacting the perception of this particular issue, whatever it might be.
That's great. And we'll talk about AI in a second, because that's obviously, there are all sorts of things emerging there. Let's talk about cultural relevance, Tania, which is, a little different than cultural insights. I have the benefit of moderating and meeting with many marketing executives as insights executives. And every time that I talk about cultural relevance, the energy pops up and people go, gosh, it is essential to win consumers' hearts and minds. Um, can you define for you what cultural relevance is? At Collage, we call it cultural fluency. But for now, cultural relevance, cultural fluency, how do you define it? And how does a brand uh, or programs or content, how do you become it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a $1 million question. We're always talking about how can we predict hits. It's not easy to do, right? I think in our field, in the content making field, it goes back to a lot of what we've been saying. You have to really listen to what's happening in society. and happening at all levels, right? And happening across generations, and happening by all genders, um, and all demographics and all, sub um, categories of people, whether they are, people that were born here, or not born here, the international component. Like, you have to really be listening to reflect culture, and then consequently create a television show that people can relate to and find, you know, germane to their everyday lives. And so I define it as, it really is understanding what's really happening with identity, with hearts and minds. It's just, we've used it so much. It is that, but it's really that what's deeply happening in society, and reflecting that back and getting into the depth of the conversation that's happening in society. Those are the things that are really resonating for people. We talk a lot, for example, I'll give you the things that work really well in television are sometimes stories about dysfunctional families. And you can find that in so many TV shows. Succession is a show about dysfunctional families. Game of Thrones is a show about dysfunctional families and sibling rivalry and sort of the relationships, the interrelationships, and the competitiveness that happens there. There are so many hit shows that really are taking a dysfunctional family and bringing it to life in a different way. Um, Sometimes it's a comedy that's a dysfunctional, like Schitt's Creek, which is such a popular show and still one of the most memorable shows. A dysfunctional family. One of our great shows, Breaking Bad, a dysfunctional marriage and family. So it's understanding sort of what's really happening in depth there, and those relationships, and being brave about talking about that in television is what makes the show stand out. It's what makes the show connect emotionally, because you're really reflecting something real. So that's what cultural relevancy is to us in television, is that understanding society and understanding relationships and really getting deep with that.
Super eloquently said. And, it is very interesting to think about the media side of things, versus, again, the product side of things. And there are so many more dimensions in many ways to it. Because you've got the understanding of what's happening in society, and then the creative way of expressing it, which is ultimately what's going to spark or not the actual show. So, Tania, you have led consumer insights for some of the world's most iconic brands, Barbie, J&J, Harry Potter. Looking back, what is one project or moment where consumer research truly shaped the direction of a brand or franchise? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I have a couple that I'm very proud of. Um, One of the proudest ones is probably the Barbie case study. So, I've talked about it. I mean, I've talked about it before, and there was a whole article about it in Time. But essentially, Barbie was, when I was there, was in a period of decline, and it had really been losing relevance. And it has become this, like, the blonde version of the Barbie. You had a lot of people, various cultures that are like, I don't relate to that anymore. That isn't my world. The world isn't this monolithic anymore. There are many definitions of a woman. And I don't want my daughter to just see one definition of a woman anymore. And we were surfacing a lot of these insights to our leadership. But there were operational constraints to changing. Like, everyone wanted to do, well, let's make other versions of Barbie. And let's make, there was a lot of criticism at the time about the skinny of the Barbie, and how we had to reflect a much more positive view for girls, body positivity. And we had been surfacing the insights, but the leadership had said, this is a big endeavor. Like, if you think about supply chain, like, we have Barbie clothes that fit a certain size of Barbie, and a Barbie car that fits a certain size of Barbie. And the fashion combinations need to work for the skin tone that we have for Barbie. So a lot of like operational implications of making a shift that were real and were going to cost a lot of money to change. But we kept at it and we finally did some work where, a lot of the pushback had been, we don't think kids see the toy as real. Like it doesn't influence them. It's just a form factor. It's not really influencing them to think about themselves differently. And we were challenging that assumption. We did some focus groups with kids and we set them up, friend pairs of little kids with a skinny Barbie and a curvy Barbie. And we had them play, and in front of the moderator, they were very polite. They looked at Kirby Barbie and they were like, "Oh, she's so beautiful," and et cetera, et cetera. And then we had the moderator leave the room and we let them play and we just observed their play. And within 5 minutes of them being alone, one of the little kids, these are 6 and 7-year-old girls, said, "This is Fat Barbie." And I want to be Fat Barbie. Do you want to be Fat Barbie? And they started making fun
Wow.
of Curvy Barbie.
Wow.
We packaged that into insights for the leadership, for our CEOs and for everyone there. And we showed them like it does make a difference. They are internalizing what we're putting out there. And I will give Mattel so much credit. The leadership like embraced it. I mean, they're a very consumer-centric organization. So they embraced that fully. And that really created with a lot of passionate people. It wasn't just the insights. There were a lot of passionate, creative people that said, we got to do this. We have to do this for girls. If our mission is a female empowerment brand, you saw the movie, which came after that. Like it really is. The mission inside Barbie is all about lifting girls up and creating, something that girls can look up to. They can be anything through Barbie play. And we weren't really living up to that. And that created the groundswell to allow us to invest in the supply chain changes that it was going to take to create various versions of clothes, various sizes. How were the form factors going to have to change to accommodate different body types, different skin tones, different hair textures? But it was amazing and it was so gratifying. It was I really felt in that experience, I think all of us that worked on that we were really impacting culture. We were impacting girls and their ability to see themselves reflected in their play, which was an amazing experience.
What an amazing example and an amazing milestone and the impact that I think has had on girls in society. And I mean, it's really remarkable how, when I was at AOL and we launched AOL Latino, for the Hispanic community. It reminds me a little bit of that, but in a very, very different way than what you guys were able to do. What role, Tania, would you say research played in leadership taking uh, what is a courageous and bold move at the time?
I think, I mean, I was in a massive team, that I was very lucky to lead at the time on Barbie, but I think it played a critical role. I mean, I think I still have very close relationships with a lot of those people. And at that time, it was, I mean, we got accolades from the leadership of saying like, if it hadn't been for all these insights that were surfaced in this way, and allowed us to see like, it really does matter. It's not just a toy. It's not just this plastic thing that goes in a bin. Like girls are pretend playing themselves. And so of course it matters. And I really believe that there were so many passionate people behind that, but I really do believe that the audience, and we were very lucky at the time that Mattel was already so insight centric and they really listened to the audience all the time because already Mattel's creating toys for little kids and the people creating the toys aren't little kids. So you have to listen to kids all the time about what they really like. So they were already primed for listening and it was already an organization that really, really embraced consumers. But that was a project in which they really heard. And that particular study changed the commitment to making this happen, which we were really, really proud of.
Fantastic. Well, what a great story. Thank you for that. Um, with so much experience across youth audiences, children, teens, and millennials, what are some of the biggest shifts that you have seen in how these groups engage with both entertainment and brands over the years?
Yeah, I think it's Such a great question. We study it like relentlessly. We're definitely, in media, there is a lot of conversation around, younger audiences really being tethered to their phones and really, the attention being shortened because they're really like short form video and older audience really like long form. I do think that's real. I think it's real. I think that younger audiences, like, anywhere 8 to 24 and even younger, obviously, that are watching YouTube ad nauseum, they are interested in that quick fix. Particularly TikTok gives them that, and it's engaging. And I really do see us competing for time. It's a share of time battle in media. There's a limited amount of time that anyone has, and even with second screening, we have to constantly prove that longer form content is just as engaging as short form to these audiences. What we're finding, though, which is really interesting, we're about to do this big presentation in Miami in January around this idea that it isn't black and white. So it isn't like all hope is lost, where younger audiences are changing the way they consume and it's all about social all the time. I definitely think that's how they're discovering brands, and, sort of social commerce is just so big, and discovery. We do know TikTok is the number one place where people find out what TV shows they're going to watch. So it's replaced word of mouth as the number one driver. It's where people hear about shows. TikTok even more so than YouTube, actually, because it's short and people can get a quick fix and move on. But what we're finding is that it really depends on the life stage that you're in. So when you're in a younger life stage, where if you think about when you were a teenager, when I was a teenager, it was all about your friends. And so social media really feeds that loop, right? You can be constantly talking to your friends wherever you are, even if you're not with them physically. In fact, because you're not with them physically all the time, it allows you to have authentic dialogue, and social enables that, and identity and expression. And kids can, really find all of their interest in a place like YouTube, and then talk about it on YouTube with their friends, or whether it be Twitch or whether it be some other sort of social environment, Snap. But eventually, once, we would say like mid-20s, once those young audiences are leaving that place in their life where all that matters is their friends and acceptance by their friends, and they move into a life stage where it's much more about community and sort of starting coupling, or having, whether it be having a kid or having a dog or having a significant other, or even in a family context, their needs change in terms of media consumption. When they're alone, it's still maybe sometimes about the endless scroll, but when they're together, it's a lot more about those communal moments of television or a movie. It's about movie night. It's about sitting back and watching a TV show, a story that can engage you, that isn't such a short fix. If you think about who sits down with their loved one to watch like an endless scroll of TikTok, not as many people. Usually you sit down to watch a movie or to watch a TV show that you've been wanting to watch. So we're finding that it's life stage driven. Obviously volume, and there's still a competition for time. And people like to spend time on social, but there's still a place for that, the art form of like taking a step back and getting out of the real world, which social is. Actually, it's more reality driven, and immersing yourself in a beautiful story that takes you out of your everyday and allows you to dream and think of another place, another time. And we're finding, or immerses you in a like wholesome family story. We're very proud of K-pop Demon Hunters, for example. That's the Sony created show. It's an incredible example of, still top 10 on Netflix. I don't know how many weeks later, because it's a story that engaged. And you see like moms, there's so many TikToks of moms singing Golden. I was just at a Santa brunch where Golden came on, and you'd think it was the club. The moms were like loving Golden. So, there's still those moments of where premium content gives us that opportunity to connect and come together. that is harder for social platforms to do.
Yeah.
Really is.
Fantastic, Tania. We're done with the business side and the sort of learning from you. And so now we're getting to a couple of minutes of learning about you. So maybe starting with what inspires you? What motivates you every day?
I mean, I'll talk about like obviously I love my job. I feel very lucky. And I really believe what I said about superpowers. I also really believe in like how passion is at the core a happy life. I find that that's true in your personal life, but also in work. If you're passionate about your job, which I am, very lucky, then you show up with new ideas and excitement for what you're going to tackle every day. So I really believe people should find jobs that they're passionate about. Really should like find the industries that most motivate them because it makes such a difference in your everyday. But truly what, those are the work things. What inspires me as a person, I mean, I'm from Mexico City. I'm incredibly close to my family. I have two beautiful daughters, a great husband. I'm very close to my dad and my cousins. I have a massive extended family. Um, I love travel. I get a lot of inspiration through travel. I have family in other countries that we visit often. And every time I take a break to go be in a different place that's like outside my everyday, I always come up with a new idea, a new inspiration, new food tip, new wine tip, or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think family, connection, travel, those are the things that really drive me and sort of are my happy places.
Strong values.
Yeah.
Strong values. That's great. Uh, Given your trajectory, such a great trajectory, such an interesting and rich trajectory, if you could travel back in time, and this is for the younger audience who's seeking so much wisdom, professional wisdom these days, um, what type of advice would you give your 20-year-old self back way then?
I would say keep learning. I just recently went back and got an advanced degree, and it took 2 very hard years of work and sacrifice of time. Um, Always be humble about the things you don't know. I think if I had, I've been very lucky in my career, very supported and grown into sort of these big roles that people think that they want. But if I hadn't, when I recently went back to school, if I hadn't been like, I don't know enough about this, like, especially in the analytics space, I wouldn't have gone back, made these incredible relationships, and deepened my knowledge in this new areas like AI. So always be humble about the things you don't know, um, and keep learning. There's so much that we don't know, and so much to learn, and sort of about culture, about the way other people live, about your own knowledge. So I would say that. I'd also still I really love the passion message. I employ that in the way that I um hire. Like we really hire people, and some of our core questions are what genres of television are you passionate about? Because we want to pair you with what you love. We expect you
Yep.
to watch a lot of TV in that genre, so we might as well pair you with what you love. And so I really believe that had that change in terms of how we give people their assignments on our teams and how we hire has made such a difference in how they show up because they love what they're doing. And so I believe in that. It really has changed my life to really be in a place. I love content. It was always my like passion to watch lots of TV and movies. And now I'm in a place where I get to help make it. And it's amazing. Same at Warner. I was very lucky there. So I think finding something you're passionate about and making that your career is such a gift, and it makes such a difference in your life. It makes it so much more bearable when you're going to spend like 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day at work. You have to love it. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth it in the end.
That is wisdom. And I think the combination of keep learning and be humble seems like it's a great growth mindset.
Yeah.
I mean, right? The combination of both. And to finish this episode, what do you do for fun? Even though it seems like you're having so much fun at work, but I'm
It's
sure
fun.
you have fun outside of work as well.
I spend a lot of time with my girls. I have the 7-year-old and the 12-year-old, and so they're super fun. We do a lot of travel. But I also play a lot of tennis. Played tennis as a kid, growing up my whole life, and so I play a fair bit of tennis. That's usually a lot of fun for me. But we live in LA. It's a great city. We get to good restaurants, good culture, good experiences here, great friends. But tennis, my girls, and a very cosmopolitan city that I get to live in.
Fantastic. Tania, such an honor to have you. Thank you so much for sharing such great wisdom. Congrats on your own journey and professional trajectory. And what a beautiful way of ending the year for us. So thank you.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here.
Thanks again. And this has been another exciting episode of Cultural Fluency Makers. See you next year. That's a wrap on another episode of Cultural Fluency Makers. Thank you for joining us. Please share your comments and what you would like to hear more about. Be as specific as possible. For show notes and more, please visit culturalfluencymakers.com. This show is proudly sponsored by Collage Group, unleashing the power of cultural intelligence to fuel brand growth. Please follow Collage Group on LinkedIn, and we will see you next week.